Hey, good afternoon, or close to evening, actually, at this point. Happy Wednesday. I spent all day today thinking it was Thursday, but happy Wednesday, anyways. We're halfway through the week. Welcome to another episode of Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. My name is Amy Kochek, and I own a business called Amy Kochek Creative, and I am a writing coach. I'm a ghostwriter. I'm an editor. I am all things story related, and the thing that I am most passionate about are people's stories. I feel like stories are what connect us. They're what help us believe that we are not alone. And in my experience, I talk to a lot of people about stories. I love hearing people's stories. And in the process of me talking to people, there's many people on this earth that have some of the most amazing, transformative stories. And it's not that they're not sharing them, but they don't have a platform to share them, or they're in the process of formulating their stories so they can write a book or they can use it for their business. And I just wanted to use my platform as an opportunity for people to share what's been going on in their lives or share what they've experienced that have brought them to this point, and with really great results, because so many of us are going through so much. And you wouldn't know that the people you see at the coffee shop or the people that you interact with every day have either overcome something or in the middle of overcoming something. And it just really helps to connect and to share our stories. So today I am so super excited. This is going to be a really great one, guys, because I think it affects and impacts so many people, specifically women. I'm not trying to discount men because I think it impacts men as well. But Samantha Katz is here today, and she's going to share her story, but also shed some light on some issues that we might not even know is going on in the health world. So, Sam, before I go any further into your story, because you tell your story best, I want you to just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and any other relevant information you want to share about yourself.
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is such a privilege and such an honor. Seriously, I think you're incredible, and what you're doing is incredible. So I'm really just grateful to be here and to have the opportunity to share my story, because like you said, I do think it's something that people don't talk enough about, yet is so relevant. And the more I share my story, the more I see people come forward and stand up and share their story too. And people that you don't even know can relate to your story are there, and they exist. And, I found that there are a lot of what I call ghost followers who are following you and listening to your story, and you're changing their lives, but you don't even know it. So it's so important to just continue to share. And it's something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
A little bit about me. I'm a personal trainer. I'm also a fitness nutrition specialist. I'm all things wellness, if you will. Being a personal trainer and a fitness nutrition specialist, I wear a lot of hats. So I do a lot of life coaching and just really developing relationships with people and helping them get through struggles, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. So a little bit about my history and my background and what got me where I am today is, I'll try to make a really long story short, in that I was always an athlete growing up, played a lot of sports, but with that came a lot of self-esteem and body image issues. I had a lot of friends that were cheerleaders, but I was the jock. So I was always a little bit thicker. I was big boned, but yet I was holding myself to a standard of the cheerleaders. And I had the guys that were always the friends, but never the boyfriends. And I had this sister who was tall and beautiful and thin. And all of my friends, my guy friends, told me how hot she was growing up. And I just, in time, developed a lot of body image issues in the way that I perceived myself. I was strong, I was healthy, but my vision of myself, my view of myself was less than to me. I went to college, decided not to play sports in college, put on probably they say the freshman 15. For me, it was probably the freshman 40. And I wasn't playing sports. I started to drink a little bit. I wasn't exercising, and the weight came on really quickly. So adding to the image issues that I already had, I added 40 pounds to it. And by the time I graduated, I just didn't even recognize myself.
Yeah.
I spent several years, several vacations, really disliking the way that I looked on the outside, but doing very little to change it. And it wasn't until probably 2 years after I graduated college, I was living in New York City. I was at an all-time low in my life in terms of how I viewed myself. I was financially well off. I had a ton of friends. My relationships with my family was great, but I was so unhappy with myself that I didn't feel like my inside didn't match my outside, if you will.
Right.
So I decided to change my life. I stopped complaining and I started running instead. I was able to drop the 40 pounds that I had put on. And then I just kept going. And after running, I decided to start competing in bodybuilding. So I started competing in fitness competitions. So that changed everything for me. For any fitness competitors out there, when you choose to compete in something that is purely aesthetic like that, you unlock something in yourself that you really never knew existed. And when you unlock that, it opens up a whole new world. So that I fell in love with nutrition, I fell in love with fitness, and ended up making a career out of it.
Yeah.
Where I am today.
So take us, so we're going to focus on the one pivotal moment, which you kind of already introed a little bit for us. But take us to that pivotal moment in your life where things kind of changed for you. And I definitely want you to address the idea of something opening up, like for when you started doing the bodybuilding, what specifically opened up for you?
So bodybuilding is a very, very slippery slope. For me, I ended up in a place where I became a slave to the food scale, because once I recognized that I was able to achieve the body that I had always dreamed of, that I never thought were possible, the way that I did that was through weighing and measuring my food and training 6 days a week, sometimes 7, multiple times a day. So with that, I ended up with this obsession with training and this obsession with food, and my fear of going back and my fear of gaining the weight back was so strong that it completely took over my life. I don't like to use the word eating disorder in terms of what I experienced. I would call it more disordered eating. So I got to a point in my life where the only way I knew how to live was to weigh and measure every gram of food that I was putting into my body. The pivotal moment that changed my life entirely was I had been competing for about a year, and I was going home to Jacksonville from New York City for Christmas to see my family. We're a big Christmas family. We eat, we drink, we celebrate, presents, the whole thing. It's a very important time for my family. It's really one of the only times of the year that we can all get together. And we love to eat, we love to drink, and it's what we do. However, this year, I went from New York City to Jacksonville with about a 20-pound cooler on my shoulder through the airport with 21 pre-weighed, packed, measured, cooked meals with me home for the holidays. Because my fear of being around temptation was so great that was like my security blanket. I was so fearful to go home and be surrounded by all the food and the snacks and the drinks that the food that I brought with me became safety. It was my safe zone.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the look on my family's face when I walked through that door in Jacksonville with that cooler over my shoulder. And they were just, I mean, who are you?
Yeah, yeah.
I was a completely different person.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, it had been a year of me living this new lifestyle, and I knew that there was some concern around that, around my family. And it was Christmas Eve dinner where my sister, who is my best friend in the world, my rock, my life, she's a year and a half older than I am. We fought like crazy growing up, but she is my ride or die, my sister, my blood, my best friend. And after a couple glasses of wine, she just unleashed on me a year's worth of emotion about how, you know, telling me to just eat a carb, telling me that I wasn't her sister anymore. Like, where had I gone? She lost her best friend, and the tears were streaming. And I just sat back and took it all in. And in my mind at that time, I thought that I was the healthiest I'd ever been. I was like, how can you say all these things and not support me? Look at me. I just lost 40 pounds. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. And she's like, you are not the healthiest you've ever been. You just brought a 20-pound cooler home with you for Christmas. You're not even prepping for a show. Like, you are not healthy.
Yeah.
And so I found myself going from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other end of the spectrum. And I didn't know how to find the balance. I didn't know how to find the happy medium.
Yeah.
My relationships with my family were very strained. My relationships with my friends, to be perfectly honest, a lot of them ceased to exist at that point.
Yeah.
I was not dating because I was terrified to go out to a restaurant and face the bread basket, you know, and when men wanted to go out and grab a drink, I didn't drink anymore because, again, I was fearful of going back to the way I was before. And I really was just a completely different person. And that moment, that argument, those tears, we're still healing from that conversation, really forced me to do a lot of self-reflection as to what health really looks like. Did I have a six-pack? Yeah. Like, did I think that I looked smoking, and was I more confident in my body physically than I had ever been? Yes. Was I healthy? No. I wasn't healthy mentally. I wasn't healthy physically. I was napping all of the time because I had no energy because of my workout routine and the way that I was eating and the lack of the quality of the nutrition that I was eating. So it really forced me to take a look and say, what is health really?
Yeah.
And that was for sure a pivotal moment for me in my career.
Yeah.
And my relationships and my life, honestly, as a whole.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. This just introduces so much more of the conversation of health that sometimes goes unavoided, because there is like this like two sides. Like, you don't want to be like, well, who cares? I accept me as I am. But you as you are is extremely unhealthy, and you're facing all of these risks because you're overweight, right? Then the other side is it becomes such an obsession that you stop living. So in your self-examination process of how you got to that point, what did you start to discover about yourself that brought you to almost that manic state? And then how did you start taking the steps to get out of that?
This is going to sound really ridiculous, but I remember reaching a point, especially with social media now, where majority of my Instagram was pictures of me, you know, flexing or my abs. And I remember thinking, as I slowly started to wrap my head around creating more balance in my life and not having to have a six-pack all the time, I remember thinking, like, what do I have to post on social media then?
Yeah.
Like, how sad is that?
Yeah.
I thought that the only value that I brought to the table was me waking up at 4:30 in the morning to go work out and showing people, look what discipline and dedication can do. And if I didn't have that anymore, what was I?
Yeah.
And with that, I had to really start recognizing that I am so much more than a six-pack of abs. So much more to give. But I spent the last several years investigating what that really looks like. And I think a lot of that had to do with character too, being someone who practices what they preach. I was preaching health and fitness, but I was exhausted and nutritionally depleted.
Yeah.
I was preaching health and wellness, but I had no personal relationships and my head was a mess.
Yeah.
And so were the hormones.
Yeah.
You know, and so I really had to think about what my message was, and are you really living it? And my integrity, especially at where I'm at in my life now, is so incredibly important to me that it was like, if you're going to start spreading awareness around health and wellness, you need to start being that.
Yeah. So how did you go about that? Because that's a large undertaking, right? Integrity. That's a huge undertaking, being who you are on the inside, letting it reflect on the outside. So what sort of practical steps are you taking to start really having full integrity in your life?
Well, for one, I mean, there's lots of things that I do in general in terms of going down that rabbit hole, because I would be lying if I said there weren't times. It was actually just probably a couple of months ago that I considered doing another show again. And one of the things I did was a social media cleanse. To be honest, I had to remove pretty much every single competitor that I followed on Instagram from my page. I just had to unfollow them completely, because I felt a shift in energy when I'm scrolling through my social media and then I see a picture of a bikini competitor and automatically we go into comparison mode. And I'm thinking, man, she looks good. And then I'm thinking, man, remember when you looked like that? And I'm like, don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't go down that road. And really, so what I had to do was just remove it from my vision entirely. And that was huge, actually. It seems very simple, but it was very impactful.
Yeah.
Also, surrounding yourself with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so unbelievably grateful for the relationships that I have now and who have just helped me become more and be vulnerable and love on me. Mm-hmm. You know, I lived a lot of my life, especially when I decided to go into this career, always being the motivator and the inspirer and always having to wear the tough girl mask. And never be vulnerable and never talk about the struggle and never talk about the pain because I was the motivator. That was my job.
Yeah.
And, you know, it got to a point that it was okay to just want to be hugged sometimes and to allow people to show you that love.
Yeah.
And be a shoulder to cry on. I think everybody needs that. And I wasn't receiving it. I was not receiving it at all. So I had to really be open to receiving genuine love from other people and know that that's okay because I'm human and I'm not Superwoman.
Yeah. How have you specifically changed your relationship with food? Because I know you mentioned disordered eating, and I know that this hits home with so many people of fear, like like food becomes a fear, and it instead of you using it to enjoy your life, you use it to control your life. So how did you address that? And then what are you still using to help you continue to have a better relationship with food?
So I'm partnered with an incredible health and wellness company called Isogenics. And that company and the people that I met in that company completely changed my relationship with food. When I first partnered with them and aligned myself with them, it's because I saw the people who were in the company and were healthy and were happy and had a fantastic, as far as I knew, relationship with food. And I wanted that. And when I started, however, I was still in competitor mode, and there were aspects of the industry and of the company that I avoided because I had a fear of sugar and I had a fear of certain fats, you know, but knowing better because I've studied and I'm certified in nutrition, knowing that the right sugars are necessary for survival and for optimal health, knowing that carbohydrates are essential for performance and brain function. Same goes for fats, same, especially for women and regulating hormones. So I slowly started to, again, it's an environment thing. I truly believe that. So I really started embracing the nutrition that I would talk about and the nutrition that I would share with other people and really embrace it as a lifestyle and surround myself with the people that did the same. And I immediately started to feel stronger. I didn't need naps anymore. I was more alive. Like my skin was better. My hair got better. And it's nutrition. And when I was competing and prepping, I was eating probably all of 5 different foods. And that's just, it's not healthy. We need certain vitamins, minerals, nutrients from many different plants, vegetables, starches, grains, you know, carbohydrates, everything. And I was missing a lot of that. So as I just started embracing that lifestyle and feeling better, the feeling better was a reminder to me. Because I, you know, still, again, will look back at old photos and think, oh, look how shredded I was. And then I think, yeah, do you remember how tired and hungry you were? And that's where I have to go with it, because I was. Remember how tired and hungry and dehydrated you were? Because you look at social media or you look at competitors, or you look at the girl in the fitness magazine, and a lot of people don't know what goes into that. And they think that that's what the epitome of health is, when usually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I would go through phases where I wasn't drinking water for 2 days. Like I was slowly depleting my water while I was also doing 2 hours of cardio and then sitting in the sauna, you know, to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be the epitome of health, but really I was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Just reminding myself what it felt like during those times, or being home for Christmas and that argument with my sister, or being home for Christmas and taking a nap instead of going to the playground with my niece and nephew who I only get to see one time a year.
Yeah.
Like those moments that I get to share with them now.
Yeah.
Is what I do to keep moving forward and understand that nutrition, like food, is fuel, and it is meant to help us thrive, not just survive. And I was just surviving before, and now I'm thriving.
Yeah. So how is your definition of health shifted after all of this?
Health is, oh man, it is all encompassing. I think before I viewed health as aesthetic, what you look like. And now I know it's how strong are you? I know it's, again, your energy, your hormones. But aside from the physical stuff, how are your relationships with other people? I look at health as mental wellness, as emotional wellness, spirituality, relationships, financial wellness. Like, I think health is multifaceted, and I don't think you can have like one definition. I just think that it's all encompassing, and it's multiple areas of your life. So if you have a list of things, it's going over that list and evaluating how healthy are you in each of those areas.
Yeah. I want to like break down some of the things that we've talked about, and I want you to specifically talk directly to the people that are watching either live or on replay, because I think so many of these issues people are currently going through. Mm-hmm. So I want you to talk specifically to people who may be struggling with body dysmorphia, or the idea of, when I look like that, then I'll feel great. Then all my problems will go away, right? This idea of like, if I look at somebody with a six pack, or somebody who's on the cover of a magazine, that's the mentality of happiness and health. So what would you say to a person like that, who is very self-critical of themselves and is always trying to get to a certain place to really accept their body and accept who they are?
I think it's asking a lot of questions. So I would advise that person ask a lot of questions about the when I get there. What does your life really look like when you get there, though? So when you get there, when you get the six pack, when you reach a size 0, when the scale says whatever number, what does your life really look like? Does it enhance your relationships? Does it bring you closer to your husband, to your wife? Does it bring you closer to your family? Does it move your business forward? Does it, like, how does that really serve you?
Yeah.
And if it's nothing more than the scale being at a certain point, or your jeans being a certain size, I think that's a really important question to ask. Yeah. And that's something that I ask. There are 2 pivotal questions that I ask myself with every decision now, not just with competing or something physical, but with relationships or business opportunities, is, does this make sense for my life? And does it move me forward to where I'm trying to go in my life, or does it hold me back? And I think, again, it's not just the size of the jeans. It's, does this create a stronger life for myself in all areas?
Yeah, I love that. So for people who may be struggling with food in general, that's like one of the biggest things, right? So many people talk about nutrition being the most difficult, and that the balance of going from, I don't care, I'll eat whatever I want, to, I can't, like you said, I can't go out with friends because I might eat from the bread basket. How do people start tackling that to really find a healthy nutrition regimen without letting it control their lives?
Education, number 1. Figuring out what our bodies actually need and the benefits of certain foods. Also, going to the doctor, getting your checkups. What does your blood work look like? Because if you're healthy, then that's fantastic. But if you're, like you said, we're in this place in society where there's the Love Your Body campaigns, but you may be incredibly unhealthy with high cholesterol and on the verge of like diabetes. So it's important to know where you're at on paper, in science, with numbers, and then finding education on how do I achieve something a little bit healthier. And again, surrounding yourself with the right people. I think your environment is everything. And to take a look at the people around you. Are they partying a lot? Are they sedentary? Do they not have healthy patterns? What does their health look like? And choose to surround yourself with people that you admire and that you aspire to be more like.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that, it does come with education and understanding that there are certain foods to avoid, certain foods that we need. I think it starts there.
Yeah. When you're working with your clients specifically, and you're doing the nutrition, the workouts, what part of tending to their mental state do you think is the most important? Because this is the part of health that sometimes we ignore. But I think, and I'm sure that this is what you preach, is that the physical and the mental and the emotional are all interrelated. So what do you think is the most important way or what you use with your clients to help them tackle the mental side of it that really helps with true health and long-term health?
I'm a big believer in personal development in general because of what it's done for me. So I always talk to my clients about the books that I'm reading, the podcasts I'm listening to, the people I'm following on social media, people that motivate and inspire me. I think that what we're feeding our minds is just important as what we're feeding our bodies. So just making sure that they're constantly feeding their minds with positive things just as much as they're feeding their bodies.
Yeah.
And I think sharing struggles, like my training sessions too. Yes, it's a solid workout, but we talk a lot.
Yeah.
It's making sure that they know that there are people in their corner and that they're not alone through what they're going through, and really just providing that support and just being open and honest and letting them. There will be days I've had sessions where we sit Indian style on the turf and that person just unleashes the baggage that they've been carrying around, because I think that's important. And our hour or whatever is, I'm like, that is yours. So if you need it today to sit Indian style and cry, or do whatever you need to do, this is your hour, because that portion of your health is just as important as the physical one.
Yeah.
And making sure, are you getting your sleep? Like, sleep is important too. I think we're in the society, this hustle society, like I'll sleep when I'm dead society, when sleep is so vital to your health.
Yeah.
So having conversations about that too.
Yeah. So through this whole, through your experience, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you learned?
The biggest lesson that I learned is that we are so much more than what our bodies look like.
Yeah.
And that external validation is fleeting. And I share in my story, when you're first going through a physical transformation, if it happens to be weight loss, is people will, as you start to lose weight, there will come a point where people will notice, and people will be complimenting you, and people will be reaching out, and it feels so good. Like, people were coming out of the woodworks when I went through what I went through. The guys that didn't pay me attention all of a sudden were like sending me DMs.
Yeah.
And it feels good. But eventually, when it becomes a lifestyle, and 3 years later, people aren't going to care as much. And your inbox isn't going to be exploding with compliments the way that it was before. So if you're simply seeking external validation from people, it is so fleeting and it will never last.
Yeah.
It needs to come from inside here. And that's what will keep you going and create a lifestyle. Because eventually people are going to stop complimenting you. It's just it is what it is.
Powerful. Yeah. Yeah, I so agree. So I want you to talk to the listener specifically. And I know that so many people are on different ends of the spectrum, right? But I just want you to specifically speak to those people who just don't embrace who they are. Like, it doesn't matter what they look like, whether they're extremely overweight, they're in the best shape of their life, or they're in somewhere in between. But every time they look in the mirror, it's just dissatisfied. And really, from your version of health, very unhealthy, despite what the physical side is saying. So what would be a word of encouragement or a piece of advice that you could give them in the state they're in right now?
Find yourself an awesome support system. I can't express enough how much the people that I've aligned myself with have changed my life, because I was going through what I went through in my mind completely alone.
Yeah.
Even when I was achieving what I thought was the epitome of health, my own family I was disconnected from, and I felt so alone. So if you can find it within yourself to be vulnerable enough to lean into your relationships with people and let people love you where you're at for exactly who you are, that will be life-changing. It took me 30 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
But now that I have, I'm so unbelievably grateful for amazing people. And honestly, like, it's what continues to drive me every single day to wake up and go out and speak to people, and how you and I even ended up developing a relationship.
Yeah.
It's really connecting and going back to the roots of what being human is all about, and that's connection.
Yeah.
So lean into those connections, lean into those relationships, be down for the relationship, ask people questions, because that's going to be what gets, I think, everybody through life. I think it's human nature to want rock solid relationships with people who love you simply for who you are and not what you look like.
Yeah, I love that. That was a great transition to my next statement. So how do we find you? And this is for a range of things, because you talked about isogenics, which I think can be a really great benefit for people who are struggling in their nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
You have your personal training business and just the things you do. And like I always say, like you just said, why we do what we do is through connections. I have this show because I want people to connect to my guests, because they're a wealth of information and experience, and they want to help. So how do we get in contact with you?
So you can find me on Facebook as Samantha Katz, just my first and last name. I am public profile. On Instagram, I am at It's Fit Fam. So that's FITFAM_Sam SAMNYC. So FitFam_Sam NYC. And then my website is samfitsolution.com. You can shoot me an email through there as well.
Perfect. And we'll put those in the comments like we always do to give you further reference. Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your story, your wisdom, your experience. It's been just so amazing. You've shared such great stuff with us today. And for those of you who are watching, please, like I just said, make sure that you connect. If you're struggling in any area of your health, reach out to people who are doing it on a regular basis, who have been where you have been and walked where you have walked. And reach out and get help, because your health, everything about your health, not just your physical, mental, emotional, all of it matter, and you matter. So, Sam, thank you again. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful rest of your week.